Eric, thanks for sharing your great ideas with us.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. After your presentation, I have a couple more questions. What are, from your perspective, the biggest trends in workplace design?
Trends. I think some of the presentation was trying to get at trends. The question of spaces being social spaces, the question of spaces being learning spaces, the idea that spaces need to be playful, they need to be building a kind of culture of their own. I hinted at the idea of a kind of eco-literacy of spaces, that spaces need to teach us to understand our environment. So those are kind of four not typical trends. People talk about technology, they talk about flex time, they talk about some of those standard things, which I think are all probably happening. But I think the social is the most important, that we need to focus the most on as culture shifts and people expect different things from their environments. Younger people see their workspace as a social space. That's where they're going to socialize, make friends, find romance. All those things are a part of the workplace now, gender issues. So we need to make spaces that accommodate that. It's not just work all the time, it's actually play space as well.
You mentioned that, and I like that, we have to design for the desire of the people. So with times are changing, more digitalization, how are desires changing and how do we as designers cope with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We as designers, we're always designing desire. We're always projecting into the future. So whatever we're designing is not yet here. We read a lot of science fiction. We think about the future, as you know. How do you make people change their culture? I just talked to somebody upstairs and they said, our CEO doesn't like this idea. It's too futuristic. It's too progressive. It's too much, too expensive. How do we provide an idea about the future that they will pull for themselves? And I mentioned this idea of like innovation push or innovation pull. Ideally, the image is so powerful, the aspiration is so powerful, this American dream idea, that it's so powerful that people will pull it for themselves. How do you do that? I think you need to sort of figure out what they're looking for, what they want. If they want a space where they can socialize, if they want a space where they can learn, those are powerful motives that people will pull for themselves. It might get them out of their private office into a kind of social space around the coffee bar. But designing desire is, in a way, it's hard. In a way, it's what we always do. We always design desire. We just never say it.
You also said that the workplace is getting more urban, is moving more into the urban, embracing the urban texture. So what does that mean for the plain vanilla office building?
I spent a lot of time designing speculative office buildings, and so it was always a kind of generic box. It was as generic as it could be because it was like for everyone. Everyone could put themselves in there. It wouldn't impose any constraints. It was always, this sort of constant depth of leasing space. Unfortunately, those spaces are flexible, but they're also generic. And one of the claims we're making is that spaces need to be not just generic, but specific. And we need to build in difference, not just one size fits all. And so the idea of designing specific, different, diverse workspace ecologies so that people will find places to work that suit them, I think that's super important. And so how do we do that within a generic office space? Sometimes you need to use the interior architecture to make difference within there. It'd be nice if you could design the architecture, the framework to be more particular, but leasing markets are some of the most conservative. I showed a spec building at a corporate headquarters, and obviously the corporate headquarters can be much more tailored. The spec building needs to remain very, very generic. But for spec buildings, I don't know, building in flexibility to allow people to customize it, to make it particular, maybe that's one way around that.